This is the first installment of the pros and cons of property management. So for people thinking about getting into the business, this is the first of what will end up becoming a number of videos centered around some bullet points of the pros and the cons of getting into property management. So number one here, real estate is a great investment and it appreciates in time, which it does. It does. It is a great investment vehicle over time. But a downside of that, turnover costs and general maintenance costs of properties. I will always remember I had an extended back and forth with a prospective client who was working from a spreadsheet, and they wanted to iron out all of the expenses, prior to kind of making a commitment into getting into the business. And they kept asking me, what is a turnover cost? What's the standard turnover cost on a one bed? What's the standard turnover cost on a two bed? And I kept telling them, I can give you a range, but I can't tell you $500 is going to cut it or $600 is going to cut it. Every apartment is different. Every property is different. If I own a property that is, considered, condition wise, it's potentially considered to be, say, a B class property. It's in a condition state of B, and it's a 70-year-old building. It's going to have a different set of costs associated with it than, an A-class property, new construction. Where's it located? Geographically too, that actually, a number of factors will contribute to differences in maintenance costs based upon where a property is located. Um, if it's in the middle of nowhere, what's our access to resources? What's our access to, skilled labor, our access to cleaners, things like that. So there's, am I on septic or am I on a well? There are many, many factors to consider, which is why it makes it virtually impossible just to tell someone, okay, yeah, it's $500 for a two bed to turn it over. What's the condition of the two bed? How long did the tenant live there? You know, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but you can sort of imagine, going down this rabbit hole of what your expenses may look like and how they may differ based upon the specific property, how long the tenant resided there, and the other factors that I listed previously. The second pro would be passive income. I can make good passive income on this. They're paying the rent every month and they're living there and taking care of everything. And con centered around that would be you will be exposed at some point, even with a manager. You will at some point be exposed. If you operate at any kind of scale, you will be exposed. Meaning, the buck stops with you. Even if you have certain processes in place and buffers in place, with people, at some point something will be escalated to you. At some point, your property manager will be unavailable. Or if you don't have a property manager, but you've got a great maintenance worker, a great cleaner, they're going to call out sick. They have a lifespan, in this area, and generally speaking, I've seen, average hired maintenance person having a lifespan of about a year and a half. On average, a cleaner 6 months to a year, and that's going to vary with different people, but over the course of the years, if we got 9 or 10 months out of a cleaner, that was good before they started becoming, unreliable, stopped answering the phone, car broke down, whatever, you name it. I've heard, pretty much every reason under the sun, for why they stop being reliable. So when those processes break and when those buffers fail, you will be exposed. So if you're going into it thinking it's going to be easy passive income, be prepared for the worst and be prepared to roll up your sleeves sometimes, because you will need to be present. The third one here is, I could be my own boss if I scale this up. So if I start off buying a few multifamilies and, while I'm working my full-time job, and get those up and running, get them running smoothly. Eventually, if I get my portfolio size to X, it'll be making enough, net income will be such that I'll be able to quit my job and I'll just be able to live off the income of these properties, and again, that's great on paper. But the bigger it gets, the higher your risk level is, your risk is elevated. The likelihood of things going wrong, the volume increases. I mean, when you scale up in your portfolio, you're also scaling up at not necessarily an equal rate as far as the resources you're going to need. I mean, maintenance is a classic example. I mean, you can have a multifamily property that eats up an immense amount of time for a maintenance worker. We've had 50 and 60 unit complexes, some of which, had a person that needed to be there, 3 to 4 days a week, all day, while the other one, they needed someone to be there 2 days a week. So, I mean, and again, we're getting into the specific property itself. This is where it's if you do decide to get into this, you want to be so careful with specifically where you buy, what you buy, and you need to know exactly what you're getting into. If you're looking to run the property lean and tight, you're going to have a tough time. You should always, my recommendation for people is always, kind of play the long game. I would much rather maintain a property really well. That's in turn going to attract excellent tenants. And it's also going to encourage those tenants to stay for a long period of time. If you maintain the property well and you treat them well, you're not going to make as much money month over month. But again, your property is going to appreciate in time, and then it's going to really be beneficial to you, say 15 to 20 years down the road, versus the standard investor that I see in this area who wants to buy cheap, buy in a up and coming area. Some of these areas that have been up and coming for 50 years, they're not going to come up. They're going to be that way for a while, at least our lifetimes. So, they want to run it tight. They want to save as much money as possible. What happens there? Condition of the property degrades or doesn't improve. In turn, you don't attract as many qualified tenants that you'd want to necessarily have in the property. It becomes more transient. Your turnover rate is higher. In turn, your turnover costs are higher. And it's a short-sighted approach, in my opinion. The best investors I've seen play the long game. They're proud of their properties. They take great care of them. And in turn, those properties take care of them. They're not going to make as much money a month, but 20 years down the road, they're going to be very happy. And to me, that's kind of the better recipe. Again, this is the first installment of this, pros and cons. We're going to cover more pros and cons in the future as well, so stay tuned.